Mr. Manjit Rajain, who's the chairman of the Tenon Group. It's a large professional outsourced services provider. Also welcome Mr. Rituraj Sinha, who's the managing director and CEO of SIS, which is the largest, among the two largest players in the sector. And let me define this industry. As we know, is only not about security services, security guard. There is cash transit. There is facilities management. There is hygiene, sanitation. And I may add, cyber security will become a lot because most installations also rely on, cyber security. Last but not the least, Mr. Rajeev Sharma, who's the managing director of G4S in India. Between them, they are pretty much 50 to 60% of the security services, professional outsourced services, pie of the industry. And by the end of this seminar, we should be able to answer some basic questions. The three of them would be: first, where is this industry headed? What is the future of the professional outsourced services industry? Is it better than what it was before COVID, or is it worse off after COVID? What will it look like in the next 6 to 12 months? And last but not the least, what are each of these firms doing to look after their customers, clients, and what are their expectations from the government? These are broadly the three questions, and I will request each of the panelists to make their introductory comments, and then we'll do a panel discussion, and at the end, we will take your Q&A. We'll start with Rituraj first. Rituraj, you've been in this industry for a very long time. You nurtured a very big business. You, as part of a FICCI forum, even made a representation to the finance minister and to the labor minister seeking SOPs for this industry because you think that the survival of this industry is critical for survival of the economy. Tell us, what are your opening remarks?
Well, firstly, Anurag, thank you to you and BW for taking interest in the sector. The private security, facility management, cash logistics sectors are often underrated, even as this is literally omnipresent. I mean, if you any viewer on this webinar will agree that we are present outside your residential colony, the school your kids go to, your office, the mall that you visit often, the bank, the ATM. If you just look around your daily life, you will see and interact with security staff, CCTV cameras, health and sanitization workers, facility management workers, all the time. So thanks for sharing the statistics. We are a 1 lakh crore revenue sector. Most people do not recognize that, and it's good that BW has taken an interest. I appreciate the effort. Also, I'd like to highlight that, even in a global context, security is a $200 billion US market. So in the global environment also, it's a very large industrial segment. In India, so far, it hasn't sort of got its visibility. But that said, I think COVID, just as opening thoughts, COVID crisis that we are all grappling with today has actually helped demonstrate, actually it's a testimony to the critical role these services play in our society and in our economy. Had it not been so, the Ministry of Home Affairs and Government of India would not have categorized private security, facility management and cash logistics services as essential services. So I think COVID has its impact on everybody. It will have impact on us as well. But just as an opening thought, this COVID situation will also give new visibility and new importance to the sector that we are and the critical role we perform in society.
So that's the silver lining in the crisis. Rituraj, thank you for educating us on the critical role you and your company and the sector plays in the economy. Mr. Sharma, Group 4 has been in India how many years? 30 plus years?
Yes, Anurag, we have been in the country for about 30 plus years now.
Yeah. So tell us, you're a very large player, and tell us your opening comments on where the sector is headed, what you expect from the government, how your customers are dealing with it, how your employees are dealing with it.
Yeah, first of all, thank you, Anurag, for taking this initiative of organizing this webinar on the outsourced professional services. And thank you so much for inviting the three large players of the industry today on this webinar to share our views about the industry and about the COVID situation in the country. As Rituraj said, largely the views would echo with what Rituraj said, because we all work in the same environment. We are not operating in different markets, different environments. So my sense is what Rituraj said, we are a 100,000 crore industry. We have almost close to about 10 million people who are working in this industry across the country. And because of this current situation, because of the, I think the lockdown situation and the lockdown scenario across the country, I think more and more residents of this country are realizing the importance of people who are part of the security industry and part of the facility services and sanitization work that they undertake. Hygiene, because normally a security guard was always viewed as a person, who is basically doing a particular job in terms of opening the gate and closing the gate. And he was not treated or felt as if he could do something beyond that.
Sure.
But COVID has definitely, changed this entire perception of security personnel in the country, because now the people who are staying in the societies, in the RWAs, they are so dependent on the entry and exit of every individual in the particular RWA and society.
Sure.
And they rely so heavily on the expertise of the security personnel to allow or disallow a person to come inside the society and the premises to safeguard everybody else who is staying within the premises. Adding to that, I think the cleaning services have also played a very, very important role, because every individual, every resident of the country today realizes it's the hygiene, the cleanliness, I think, which is going to keep us safe from this disease and the spread of COVID-19. As far as the government is concerned, I think I will leave it to Rituraj to head it, because Rituraj is the chair for private security industry on FICCI, and he's doing a good job in terms of working with the government, taking initiative with the Ministry of Home Affairs as well as Ministry of Finance and Labor, and trying to see what best support we can get from the government. And I think as the chair on FICCI, I fully support him for the work that he's doing, and I stand by him in terms of working together with him and taking the good work that he's doing ahead with the government. We haven't heard anything from the government except for one thing which happened, which was very, very critical for us to continue delivering our services. We were categorized under the essential services by the MHA, I think, which helped the industry a lot, and not only the industry, I would say it helped every user of these services to a very large extent, because we were able to move around and deliver the services what every citizen of the country was looking forward to during these times. In terms of customers, every customer of ours today is going through the similar kind of problem. I think they have their own challenges in terms of their own offices, their own establishments, and wherever they're operating in whatever circumstances, I think the biggest cause of concern for all our clients on the other side is how can they keep their employees safe? How can they keep their establishments sanitized? And that's where their expectations from services like what we offer, the outsourced professional services, I think the expectations are increasing, because sanitization is something which is just coming up in a big way now, which was not something which was of that importance, I think, prior to COVID-19. My sense is going forward, we will definitely see some more challenges in the industry. But I think collectively and together, if we all stay together, come together to fight COVID-19, I think we'll have a very, very easy exit from this problem. And I think we'll all collectively emerge out winners.
Thank you, Rajeev, for finding the positive in this. And it's a real thing. that there is an opportunity and a mindset change and a behavior change during COVID times. I want to ask you a specific question, Rajeev. Has your business seen degrowth? If yes, by how much? And how are you dealing with that? And what are your customers saying to you? Give us some examples.
That's a very, very important question, Anurag. And to be very honest with you, as of today, I think every customer of ours is very appreciative of the work that people are doing in the industry today. And with the government also, requesting every employer in the country today to ensure that the workers, the minimum wage workers are taken care of, their employment is protected, and their wages are protected. So in that context, we haven't seen any reduction in our revenues, because most of our customers, I would say large part of our customers, have been extremely cooperative and very sensitive to the requirement of the sector and the workers. And they are very happy in giving us and allowing us the full complement of the strength and the wages for the full complement which they required, or which was working with them prior to COVID-19. So as of today, at G4S, we haven't experienced any kind of reduction in the services, any kind of reduction in the revenues, any loss of jobs. We have not seen it until today. For the future, it's very unpredictable, so I would not be able to comment how the future looks like. We'll see as we cross that path.
Okay, it's a good. So you're saying the mall owners, the cinema owners who are shut down, the retail establishments are shut down, they have not resorted to a fee cut with you?
As of now, I am saying that they have been very, very considerate, and I think they are aligned with what government is encouraging the employers to take care of the workers, their employment.
Right.
And most of our, I would say almost all of our clients are very, very supportive as of now. What happens, how it shapes up once probably the lockdown gets lifted, once we move forward, is something, we'll only get to know once we get there.
Yeah, good. Manjit ji, you're a very optimistic person. I've met you. I've had the good pleasure of interacting with you. You heard Rituraj say what he said. You heard Rajeev say that till now there have been no cuts. What are your opening remarks?
Anurag ji, first of all, thank you very much for having us here, all of us, my dear friends. I get to see them a lot these days. And it's very heartening that a highly prestigious magazine like Businessworld is taking interest. And this is probably the first webinar of its kind that I'm participating in. So my compliments to you and thank you very much. There are actually three phases to all this. I think there is a before COVID, which we are used to. There will be a post-COVID, something like BC and AD. But right now, what we are going through is in the middle of that COVID. That period seems to be the most difficult one. We are fighting as, I will not tell you more about the industry, Raj and Rajeev have already spoken about it. Let's just focus on the pandemic. It's a global pandemic. It's going to affect us in a very big way. It's here to stay. It's going to be there for a long time. I'm sure we've all been highly educated about the pandemic from what I love to call the University of WhatsApp. We get used to at least get a huge number of messages. But if you actually you come to know that this is something which is going to have a major impact on the world as we have known it in the past, and different world that we are going into. The only silver lining is going to be the only time when we probably really come out of it is when we go to the vaccine company. With that, is hearing the Serum Institute people talk about it. They will probably have it in September or October. So let's look at November, December kind of a time frame when we would have vaccines going down to the last year. Coming to this industry, I think this industry has actually found its recognition in the unfortunate times through this pandemic. You'll be surprised that when everything else is shut down, everything literally, the only people you see on the road is either the police officers, and the only people you see is the security guard. And not to forget that cleaning person who's still cleaning the premises. Otherwise, we would all have been living in really unhygienic environments.
Conditions.
So this industry has really been recognized in these sad times. It's something like the army being recognized in times of war. So this is literally a war, and the government, of course, has will need to do a lot. But I think they've taken the right steps. I'm truly very happy and very impressed with what our government has done in these times. The steps taken by the government to do a lockdown at the proper time and contain this pandemic has truly been fantastic. It's best over the world. In this industry, like Raj and Rajeev told you, we have this is a very large industry. It's a huge contributor to the employment. It probably employs more people than any other sector besides agriculture in the country. Uh, and I'm sure post COVID there'll be a much larger role to play, though a very different one. First part will be, I think there will be more security required. Now, when you enter a premises, you'll need to ensure that there is somebody to check whether you sanitized your hands or were you wearing a mask, or somebody to even hold a basic thermometer and check whether your body temperature is high or low. I think that is going to become the new normal. Your body temperature to be checked. You don't want to get into an elevator where there are 4 other people standing and you're not even sure what they are, whether they are infected or not, or whether they've. And security will play a very important part of it. I think the sector will also rapidly transform. It's going to go through a very rapid transformation from just physical security to technology to remote monitoring. A lot of new things which we thought were much further, but now have suddenly come very. Also, a very large part of these sectors, the manpower outsourced sector, has been essentially unorganized sector. This will also push it towards becoming organized. You can see a very rapid transformation for security sector to become and the facility management sector to become organized. What happens is whether work from home will be a more advantageous thing for companies, or as we love to hear from a lot of people that China suddenly industry will shut down in China and overnight everybody will walk into India. I don't think it's happening that fast. We will have an advantage because of that, but it's not happening that fast. Supply chains don't get uprooted overnight. But eventually, this industry will become the support base, whether it's law and order or keeping, because the public to police ratio in our country is one of the lowest, and therefore security will play a very important part. Similarly, a lot of facilities which are required in any property, external and internal, will be provided by this industry. Coming
Right.
coming to our clients, I think very much like Rajiv, our clients have been highly supportive. It's really been uh, good to know a different type of a client. The client is actually more humane as we see him now than what he was earlier. Yes, certain sectors are really bearing the brunt of this, whether it's malls or cinema halls, which are shut down, and I don't think they're going to open for a long time. But overall, they've been very supportive.
Thank you, Manjit ji. I want to ask you a direct question. I want to keep this conversation as real. And the reason I'm not asking Rituraj very specific questions to his company is tomorrow SIS results come, so he will only speak on the industry. And you really three are the leading captains of the industry, and so to say, you represent the whole industry in some way. I want to ask you: has your company's revenues been impacted? If yes, by how much? Do you see revenues being impacted in the next 3 months? And one more add-on question. While you say that, will there be a change of focus for each of your companies to more automation at the facilities that you man, or you provide facilities management, or where you do hygiene sanitation? And second, what is the behavior change from the guards of the professionals that man those facilities? Manjit ji, first you, and then we'll go to Rituraj and Raji.
So Anurag ji, starting from the first part of the question, our revenues in March and April have absolutely not been impacted. That is probably because the lockdown period in March was of a very short duration, and April is still a time when people are absolutely keen open up very quickly, and we need our people to be there. Let's be in readiness. In fact, I've seen dozens of SOPs for post-lockdown scenarios. So far, revenues, I don't think of any of our companies is impacted. What we will need to wait and see is what happens in May and June if there is a further lockdown, or if the lockdown opens up in phases. So, for example, certain sectors may not be able to open up. Travel industry may not start in the way it did earlier. That is when
airports may not be functional the way they are. There is a proposal that only T3 will open and T1 and T2 will be shut, as you're aware, and the lockdown could be extended till at least May 20th, if not more. And in states like Maharashtra, lockdown may go till June. So those are real possibilities. So there's no certainty. So do you see loss of revenue then?
I think that would not be rocket science to say that there will definitely be an impact on revenues if there is something happen. May also I'm not truly worried about. I think it's beyond that I would worry. I think couple of months no client is going to really restructure working just to ensure that they can save some money. But post May, yes, I would say logically there will definitely be some impact on revenues. How much? What quantum will depend on what people perceive as the longevity of this lockdown, or how long it will take for the phased lockdown. That is first part of the question. Automation. Automation is something that has been happening over the past, I would say, at least three odd years. It may have been happening 4 years back also, but not at that pace. But every year, if you look at it, it has been gaining momentum and gaining size. So remote monitoring, automation, more use of more sophisticated security is going to grow. There is no two ways about it. With COVID, it's probably going to accelerate faster. Without COVID,
right? Sure. And what is the behavioral change from the professionals in the front line? The guards, their supervisors. Is there a behavioral change, or in the way their SOP changing? Is there something worth mentioning on a webinar that can benefit everyone?
On Anuragji, on their on the personal front or on the behavioral front, I have a feeling that they have started because they are being respected more, they are being looked after more. People are saying that you are the person who's standing at the gate. I think they have gained a lot of self-respect. They've gained a lot of confidence. Security guard was literally that chowkidar standing at the door. Over the last few years, he's been accepted as a guard, but a necessary expenditure to have over there. In some cases, you're not even required. You just had him there because you wanted to have a guy in uniform there. It was more a prestige symbol. Today, he's respected, he's required, you can't do without him. Complexes, colonies, anywhere you go, you really desperately need him. And I think the guard's behavioral changes, he's feeling more like a professional who's being respected.
Thank you, Manjit. Rituraj, I want to ask you a very specific question. You made 5 demands or requests or prayers, whichever way you want to put. You call it a prayer in your FICCI document. You made requests to the government. Can you take us through those 5 requests that you made to the government? Because really every sector is struggling. Your sector has the fact that the government classified as essential services has a very important role to play. So take our readers and viewers through the 5 demands that you as an industry and as an industry leader made. And I want to tell you, while we are a magazine, the Businessworld site did about 33 million traffic in March. That makes us among the top 5 business websites in the country, rather top 3 business sites in the country, and growing. So we continue to bring out our magazine, but our main business media platform and our 15 sites would possibly be 40 million traffic. So, we are, our digital transformation is also has it. Coming back to Rituraj, your asks from the Finance Ministry and from the Labour Ministry.
Anurag, I think the first thing to highlight before we get into the government engagement is that, like my colleagues were saying, our assessment is that as we were declared as an essential service, and not just in India, I think just for your viewers to know, I mean, SIS operations in Australia, in New Zealand, in Singapore, I'm sure Rajiv will or Manjit will also confirm that in most countries, services that we provide have been classified as essential services. Now, what that essentially means is that the impact on our sector in terms of revenue, margin, collections will probably be lesser than most others, and hopefully it will be more delayed. We will not directly be impacted because of what's happening in COVID lockdown. Probably the aftermath of this scenario, which is a deep financial slowdown, maybe recession in the coming 6 to 12 months, that long tail will probably impact our sector. So we clearly see that in the short term, there's a demand upside, like most of my colleagues are articulating. But in a 6-month to 12-month period, we can clearly see that the working capital required in the business will go up. There will be revenue pressure. Revenue may decline as more industries suffer. There will be severe margin pressure. So COVID will impact everybody and everything. It's just that we probably be last to be impacted and hopefully the least to be impacted.
That's a very good note. And
Right.
just to give our viewers a perspective, if the revenue is 100 rupees, 90 rupees goes in people's salaries, 5 to 7% goes in taxes. So the margins are 2 to 3% at the scale at which you operate. In smaller firms, there may be more because they've operated at a different kind of metrics.
I think it'd be fair to say that this is a 5 to 7% EBITDA margin business. That's what it is globally, not just in India. But coming to the point that we were making, what is it that we are pursuing the government for? Look, we took a very early start. I had the benefit of very good engagement with all my colleagues in the security sector, in the facility management sector, also in the cash logistics sector. We quickly got around to framing a view on what we need from the government. And we basically asked for 4 or 5 things. First up is a wage subsidy. If you look at the international practice, whether it's Australia or United Kingdom or Netherlands or various other parts of the world, they have extended, wage subsidies to large employment generating sectors, particularly sectors that support blue collar jobs. So I think on the same lines, we have put up a request for wage subsidy. We also sought GST relief. GST is a very large payout for us monthly basis. As customer collections get delayed, we have requested the government to charge GST or make GST payable when collections are received and not when invoices are generated, because there'll be a big time lag between invoice and payment. We've sought a 50 lakh rupee health cover for all our people who are at work today. As you move around, like Manjit was saying, whether it's a hospital or a quarantine facility, there will be private security guards standing outside managing queues. There will be housekeeping and sanitation workers working on the inside. Even today, lakhs of crores of rupees are being drawn from ATMs every day. So somebody is going to fill those ATMs. So this is the nature of work we do. These people have taken tremendous risk for very basic jobs. And these brave hearts need to be protected by health cover. So we're very actively engaging with Ministry of Labour and Ministry of Home Affairs for that. We've also sought relief on Provident Fund ESI, and we've sought priority sector lending status. Most of the smaller companies in our space, and even the larger ones or medium ones, they do not have the benefit of major collateral. Our industry is very asset light. It's not an industry where you build a lot of factories and plants and you have a lot of
it's
land
people intensive.
It's people intensive. So the only asset base you have is your collectible, the current assets, from an accounting terminology.
Yeah.
So we are looking, we have requested the Honorable Finance Minister and the Reserve Bank of India Governor to consider us as a priority sector for lending in these times, because if the smaller or the medium or even large security companies and FM companies get impacted, that will directly result in job losses, delayed wage payments, delayed PF, ESI, GST payments. So we've sought for
So
that.
there will be a cascading effect.
So this is the 5 things you've asked for. I must acknowledge that industry has received very good response. I had the opportunity personally to speak to the Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharamanji on the 11th of April. She personally came on the line. She spoke and understood about the industry, which is phenomenal, for a finance minister to take time to understand industry issues, ask for a representation. It was tremendous. We also, when the lockdown happened, we had the opportunity to talk to the Honorable Home Minister, Amit Shahji, directly, whereby we requested that our workers are having great trouble in moving around in lockdown period, so we must be declared as essential services, and therefore the MHA circular has a separate line item. The last line item says private security and our services. So government has been very understanding. Ministry of Labor recently helped us with a very important circular to clarify the matter regard to payments, etc. So Mr. Piyush Goyal, the Honorable Commerce and Industry Minister, did a video conference 4 days back with all industry leaders to understand our demands. So I think the government is extremely proactive, especially with large employment generating sectors like ours, trying to understand where our problems lie, how we can be helped. And I'm very hopeful that they will recognize our sector to be amongst the first few that receive some kind of support from the government establishment.
Thank you, Rituraj, for not just batting for your company, but for batting for the industry and for batting for the 1 lakh crore people that are employed within your industry. Rajeev, one of the questions, I'm getting several questions on the feed and on my WhatsApp through my team, is one of the questions, and I'm collapsing the question is, it's okay, you three are very large firms. What should small and medium-sized firms, which are 1/10, 100 of your turnovers, do? How do they get funding in the short term? So this is a question that 4 or 5 people have asked. I'd like Rajeev to respond to it, and then we can go to Manjit ji and Rituraj. What should small service providers do?
Thanks, Anurag. I think this is a very valid concern of the medium and small enterprises in the country today. And when companies of our size can possibly visualize the impact on the cash flows in the future, I can understand very well the kind of situation that the smaller companies would be in, probably sooner than later, in terms of their inability to meet the cash flow requirements because of the economic slowdown in the country. That's the reason. If I reflect back on what Rituraj said, his 5 agenda demand with the government, I think one of the demands was basically to treat this sector under the priority lending sector from the bank's perspective. So what happens is banks on some special terms start giving working capital loans to the small and medium enterprises for them to pass through this particular period, which is a period of duress, and this is a period where we are all.
And that's one of the demands to label your sector as a priority sector, and one of the requests that you made to the government.
That's where his 5-point demand as one of these demands to support the industry, and especially the MSMEs, where we can understand that they must be expecting a lot of cash flow challenges. So I'm sure, I think, and government anyway has taken some already decisions in terms of supporting with the provident fund for the employers which have got less than 100 employees currently working with them. So one of the other parts, the points where Rituraj was talking to the finance department ministry and the commerce ministry was to extend this provident fund support to the other organizations, to the larger organizations as well, instead of restricting it to only employers with less than 100 employees. And I think the other point which was there in the representation or the prayer, I would call it the prayer on behalf of the industry, which was submitted by Rituraj as a FICCI chair, was also with reference to the subsidy on the wages. So
Sure, that was a top point.
all these initiatives, I think, largely are for the industry. I think to a very large extent, I would say the large companies are somewhat better equipped to handle these situations. But I think this was representation was largely for the industry, so that the industry, gets benefit
Benefits.
at these special stimulus from the government. And I am very positive. I'm very positive. I think government is looking at a lot of initiatives, and they would be coming out soon with the next set of stimulus package. And we are hopeful that the industry would get definitely some attention from the Honorable Finance Minister in the next release.
Thank you, Rajiv ji. Manjit ji, while we can expect what the government has to do, what can the smaller and mid-sized players do themselves on cost, on revenues, on preparing themselves for the future? And there is an add-on question and ask Rituraj that, do you think the role of remote monitoring will grow? Will remote monitoring become even bigger than what it is? And second is, will the professional uh, uh, outsourced professional services professional will be more empowered post-COVID or least empowered? Will the empowerment of who are there in the front line grow up post-COVID or nothing changes? So first, what can these entrepreneurs or mid-sized service providers do themselves while they wait for whatever the government is to do? What can they do? What should they do?
Anuragji, globally, entrepreneur and more specifically in India is a person who really knows how to find his way out, and he's quite successful. Indian entrepreneurs are quite successful across for finding ways. Some of the things that a standard entrepreneur would do is reduce his cost. The little advantage that smaller companies would have is that their cost base or their cost to operate is also a bit lower than what it would be for us.
So do you advocate salary cuts? Say if it lasts beyond May, do you think security companies across the board, even the large ones like you, where you have manpower costs beyond guarding, I'm talking of management costs, do you envisage salary cuts? Do you suggest salary cuts so that you sustain in the long term?
I definitely would suggest salary cuts. It is, I think, and I think every employee would support that, because the survival of the organization or survival of the business is very important. If the business survives, the jobs will survive. If the business doesn't survive, there'll be no jobs left. The government has already been supportive. One, of course, they have given a leeway that Provident Fund for companies which have less than 100 employees will be paid by the government. We have also taken it up with the government as FICCI for certain relaxations, which and some support that Rituraj just spoke about. Rent cost, salary reduction, talking to the clients and educating them that we are a 10-5-5 kind of a 90-5-5 kind of a company, which means essentially, like you rightly said in the beginning, 90% of our costs are direct costs, which are literally a pass-through with us, and we are a 5 to 7 EBITDA percentage business across the world. So all the measures that a standard entrepreneur would take in any sector of reducing cost for the survival of the business should be taken by them. That's one. Two, automation, there is no doubt about it. This is kind of a given that automation will expand. It will expand at a phenomenal pace. Remote monitoring will become more a practice than a norm. Man guarding companies will move a lot to remote surveillance and more technology. Contactless security will also come in a very big way. You will be doing away with a new technology, which till a year back you would have said it's a new technology. Biometric is now already become passe. So I think there will be a huge amount of move towards remote surveillance, automation, technology. And last part of your question, I strongly believe, and I think that's only right, that now that the security guard is finally being accepted and respected for what he does for us in these very critical times, I think in future that security guard would have much more confidence. That person will be given much more respect than he was ever given in the past. And he will be definitely empowered, because it is at his level where the future of this pandemic remains to be stopped.
Rituraj, do you think both as leaders, professionals, and people down the value chain, is there a new skill set required? Is there a skill set that you need to add on as a professional, whether you're a manager, you're a shift in charge, you're the VP? Is there a new mindset plus a new set of skills that is required to thrive in the post-COVID era?
Well, I think, in terms of skill set or the way businesses operate or the way professionals we conduct ourselves, I think everything will have to take there's going to be organic pivoting. It's not something that you need to plan or structure. I mean, honestly speaking, I've never worn PPE in my life. I'm wearing PPE now every day to work. So life adapts and it goes on. So I think the change in behavior is going to be there. But 2-3 points I just wanted to make with regard to an earlier question. I think when you spoke about smaller enterprises in our sector, I think personally, my view is a little bit different. I believe the smaller enterprises are less at risk.
Okay, and why do you say so?
Scale operation is larger. Your risk is larger. I mean, if somebody is operating a business in Odisha or in one state, his risk is restricted to that state. Whereas, for larger businesses,
the scale of disruption is larger.
The scale of disruption is wider, and in a time when physical mobility has become a problem, managing a pan-India operation and the risk and the probability of something going wrong is higher if you have more customers, more sites, more states, more branch offices. So I think first thing, I believe that the smaller and medium enterprises, they must not see themselves as more affected. They're actually less affected. Less affected because they have a more manageable size problem. That's one. Second is that, I think I was speaking to a lot of different entrepreneurs who run different scales of business in the security and FM space. I mean, one thing is very clear. I think, I'm sure all entrepreneurs are doing it. But I think before we work to worry about margins or we work to worry about revenue saving, first thing to do is to conserve cash.
Sure.
In a crisis, cash is equal to survival. So the first thing to do is to try and increase, extract, and conserve cash. Go and try and increase your working capital or overdraft lines. All banks are offering 10 to 20% increase in overdraft facilities across the country. So first thing is to increase your access to working capital lines. Second is to extract. The lockdown period has established a very unique scenario where the customer cannot go to his own site, but his security staff is there to protect his site. The importance of security staff has got highlighted in this time.
Sure.
Use that, leverage that, extract your pending payments and pending collections.
Very practical tip.
Right? And the third thing is to conserve. Like Manjit was saying, anything that is a non-essential needs to stop. Travel, rentals, partly even meetings, conferences, seminars, anything that is CapEx, it needs to stop.
Sure.
So it's basically increase, extract, and conserve. That's the way I think most businesses will need to fight this. More so if you're responsible for paying wages of thousands and tens of thousands of people. So cash is paramount.
Thank you, Rituraj, for making it very real. And, I want to bring in our viewers, participants who have logged in and are watching. I would say to all of you that we have the Shah Rukh Khan, the Amir Khan, and the Salman Khan of this industry here. You can figure out who's said. I think we can do an interesting quiz. Who do you think is the Shah Rukh Khan of this industry? Who you think is the Amir Khan? Who is the Salman Khan? And we'll kind of publish the results later. But on a serious note, Chetan and Tanvi, you could allow some 2 or 3 questions, and we can get them on video to ask those questions. Chetan, Tanvi, one by one you can allow. Please allow, and keep your questions specific. Keep your yes.
So the first question we have is from Lieutenant Colonel Rajeev Sinha.
Can you get him on the line and let him ask that question? Lieutenant Colonel Sinha, we'd welcome you to ask this question. So can we get you in the frame, and why don't you ask this question directly to Mr. Rajain, Mr. Sinha, and Mr. Sharma?
Right, sir. So my questions to the panelists is that what do you feel would be the new normal in terms of the usage of IR/thermal laser-based attendance and body temperature monitoring systems as preventive mechanisms going forward? Because as a panelist rightly said, that this a while ago used to be a future technology, but today we see that this has become the essential requirement. Is the industry, is the need there? Is the industry poised to meet this demand?
Rituraj, you want to take it? Manjit ji, aap, Rajeev, whoever.
Rituraj, you want to take it?
I can take it if you want.
Yes, Rajeev.
Lieutenant Colonel Sinha, thank you so much for coming on the call and asking this question. I have my views on the usage of the thermal scanners and the usage of the biometric technology. And this basically emerges out from the fact that there are a lot of directives which are being given by the government of India, and I'm talking in the Indian context today. And in government of India has prohibited use of the touch-based biometric technology today across the country to prevent the spread of COVID-19. And this is something which possibly was not anticipated. The most widely used biometric technology in India or probably worldwide was the finger touch biometric technology. Now, having said this, since the government has put restrictions on the use of biometric finger touch biometric technology in the country, we will have to evolve to a contactless technology. And I don't know which one would suit best, whether it would be the facial recognition, whether it would be the wave, or whether it will be retina. But we will have to at least find out a technology which basically can replace the touch-based technology for the future. It's not from only the government directive standpoint. I think it will also augur well with the security and safety of every individual that we are all concerned about in the future. There is a lot of investment which is going in the technology companies worldwide on working on finding the best contactless biometric technology to be used in future. So you never know. We may have something really economical, reasonably priced technology which might come out in the market soon. My sense is whatever we have used in terms of facial recognition, there are challenges of the facial recognition technology. That's why the finger touch biometric was most widely used, because with different kinds of your facial dimensions and the backgrounds, normally the facial recognition technology is not 96-97% fail proof. So that's the reason why I think the companies will have to do a lot more to find something which basically can replace the touch-based biometric. On your second question, which is basically the use of the thermal scanners or probably the contactless thermometers for to be able to take temperatures of people and assess if the body temperature is normal or individual having a particular high-grade fever or probably a mild or a moderate fever. I think slowly and gradually, if this becomes a new normal, then I think we will have to do away with the contactless thermometers also. There are technologies which are available in the market today. People walk through, that is deployed, people walk through the technology and automatically their temperatures will scan. So there is no individual who is holding on to a contactless thermometer and doing the thermal temperature checks. I think it's a free passage for all. People move around. There is a control room set up. Control room keeps looking at individuals in terms of the body temperature. And they have the mechanism to identify a person with a higher body temperature and immediately isolate that person from the crowd. So I think that will get deployed in probably the areas where you have large crowd movement in the offices. And it's not something which is mandatory, but I think it will be very, very useful. It will be required. It will be much desired, I would say, to ensure that the employees working in those facilities probably are protected and the preventive measures are put in place.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I think we get that.
Thank you,
I want to bring the next person who's wanting to ask a question. Chetan Tanvi, you can allow the next person.
We would like to request Mr. Tyagi to come online and ask his question, sir.
Yeah, thank you, Chetan, and thank you, Anurag. You have already started a debate. Who is bigger and better out of these three Khans? All three are looking so handsome and dashing. My question is,
who's the Salman Khan? They all three are married.
Let this debate, get into a very serious level, and the outcome will be shared soon. Anurag, back to my question, and all three
panelists. Is it directed to anyone specifically on the panel?
Yeah, any three of them can answer. All are equally competent. My question relates to the industry requirement today. During lockdown, few trends have come up that security people are more and more asked to get involved in business continuity plan. They were previously part of a specific team. There was a specific team and security guards were required to do that. But in the absence of main players of different teams, the security personnel are being asked to run the water hoses and check the sprinklers, see smoke detectors. And
short question. So your question.
Short is that new skill sets is required within the industry, and then outside the industry, there are requirement of doing health monitoring, public health monitoring. So is industry ready, security industry per se, ready for the new skill sets which are to be trained and imparted to security personnel? Is there any plan about it already in process?
Rituraj said that he used the word organic pivoting, which means as and when required, and they're already kind of moving that direction. But Manjit ji or Rituraj or Rajiv can take that question, whoever.
So I'll take that question. Captain Tyagi, thank you very much for asking that question. Short answer, if you had asked me 1 month back, answer was no. Obviously, we were not prepared. COVID has come to us so fast and so hard. None of us were prepared for anything of this nature ever globally. So no, we were not prepared for this. We were no training curriculums or anything to refer back. This is a unique situation. It is making you think on your feet. You are having to devise new strategy, new plans, new BCPs, day in and day out. What may be absolutely perfect for today's situation in COVID may not be perfect for tomorrow's situation in COVID.
It's very dynamic.
It's very dynamic right now, and we really can't predict what is going to happen tomorrow. However, you are absolutely right. The security guard, as I had also mentioned, is now playing a much bigger role. He's being entrusted with a much bigger role. They are having to come up very quickly to be able to respond to the circumstances. It will be our endeavor as an industry to now come up with new plans of skill elevation, new plans of training these guys to come up to that level where they can handle much more than what they could in the past. And I'm sure the users will also start appreciating what we are providing for them. And accordingly, the whole market dynamic will change.
Thank you so much. Chetan Tanvi, we can have Vamsi last question, Vamsi from Duran. We have other questions which I'll summarize into the last question, but Vamsi, go ahead, ask your question.
Good evening to the panelists.
Vamsi is from Hyderabad and he's part of a technology services company, and they're into remote. So that's why he asked that remote question.
Yeah, yes. Would like to get, thank you, Mr. Batra, and good evening, all the panelists. A quick question I had to get your thoughts on how you view the remote surveillance panning out in this post the pandemic scenario, and how the technology adoption, whether we are there yet, how it can complement the existing manpower with remote surveillance, and especially including recent developments in artificial intelligence as well. How you think the remote monitoring can help the security industry as such, and how you see it panning out.
Thank you so much. Rituraj? You'll have to unmute your thing. Rituraj, you have to unmute. You put it on mute, so you'll have to unmute.
Yeah, so I think, thank you, Vamsi, for that question. I think remote monitoring is an essential part of our industry. I think the importance of remote monitoring will only increase over time. I think artificial intelligence is going to play a very key component in COVID SOP compliance. It is not physically possible to monitor hundreds of people or thousands of people working in an IT park. It's not physically possible to check COVID compliance like mask and social distancing and various other things that COVID compliance includes. So I think the importance of remote monitoring will only increase with time. And artificial intelligence, the quality of artificial intelligence that we currently use is very rudimentary. The evolution of that will need to be at a very, very rapid pace and scale to meet the future requirements.
There are many questions, and the whole idea of doing a webinar is to get people to participate. So I'll cut my question short, but there's Anish Arya who wants to ask a question. Chetan, get Anish Arya, and Anish, you can ask your question directly.
Okay, gentlemen, good evening. It's nice to see you discussing this. I belong to the travel industry, and I feel the travel industry is completely unregulated in the past years, although there are bodies which guide and proceed further. Right, but we all know they're not really able to sort out the commission part in the past years. Anyways, coming down to the present, how do you see the travel industry changing, or is it just wait and watch?
There is a convergence of your sector with almost every sector. There's convergence with travel, airports. That's a big part of the economy. So travel, airports, security services, all linked. We can get Rituraj, then Rajeev, and then Manjit. Rituraj?
Well, I think, honestly speaking, I'm not the travel sector expert here, so, wouldn't know entirely. But, my broad thoughts are twofold. Number one, any sector that requires contact and crowding, like a concert, like a 5-star hotel, anything that requires contact and crowding will probably be impacted more and will probably be the last to come out. It could be a restaurant, it could be a railway station, whatever it is. I think contact and crowding are the two essential traits that people are going to run away from. As regards to our role, I think in travel industry, we've always had a very prominent role. We see travel as a larger industry involving travel, hospitality, tourism, all rolled into one. That sector is a very vital sector for us. We completely understand that, the occupancy rates of the best 5-star hotels in the country today is 90% down, which is unprecedented. This didn't even happen during the time of 9/11. Or any other global fiasco has not resulted in that kind of impact on airline business or hospitality business or even food retail business as COVID has. So I think at one level, I feel that this sector will take more time to recover. I also acknowledge it's a very priority sector for us as service providers. We are looking to work with these sectors. I completely remember 26/11 attacks in Mumbai, terror attacks. Nobody really figured out at that point in time that in a matter of 18 months, every 5-star hotel, every mall, every public place will have a door frame metal detector and a baggage X-ray machine installed. And private security will be required to do 3-level checks. Cars coming in and then people and then, different procedures. but that happened very rapidly. I think COVID is a similar kind of defining moment or a watershed moment for security and FM sector. And our role in travel, tourism, hospitality will transform more fundamentally than it did during 26/11.
I also want to add one more question here. In my view, over the past couple of weeks, what I've understood is that the vaccination, the only cure that I see here is the vaccination. Although vaccinating 130 plus crore Indians is again a humongous task. What are your views from whatever inputs you have? Do you foresee? I personally see it coming through in the next couple of months. What do you all have
just,
to say?
Just to tell you, because I want to keep, that has implications for all sectors in this. But
Right.
As you know, Oxford has developed a vaccine and trials are on, and the Serum Institute of India is developing the vaccine along with 4 other partners. I watched the interview of Bill Gates with Fareed Zakaria on Sunday. And while Bill Gates said that he's working with the finest minds, but he would not like to raise expectations, as Dr. Fauci has said, that it normally takes 12 to 18 months for a vaccine to be developed, tested, and perfected. But with the unprecedented situation, everyone getting together, it could happen in 6 months. That's a possibility. Only after trial we'll know. But I don't think anybody has a definite viewpoint on that. I want to conclude this discussion. I want to bring Rajeev, Manjit, and Rituraj into the focus. I want to ask you my last question. And I want to sum up the last question that came from a lot of people, which basically said, how will you motivate your employees when you're doing salary cuts? If in future the lockout stays, how will you motivate people? And I want to add to that, what are your top 3 predictions or suggestions for the future? So with these answers, we'd like to sum up. So we can go Mr. Manjit Rajain first, Rituraj and Rajeev.
So a quick answer to the first part. The cuts, if they ever come, and I sincerely hope they don't, will probably only come at the top level, which means at the non-billable kind of thing, because at the client level or at the guard level, you really can't do any cuts. There is no headroom at all over there for anybody. When that happens, I'm sure these people who are actually not the blue-collar workers, the white-collar workers, would absolutely appreciate that this is the survival of the business. And if there is a business, they have a job. And I'm sure people of that level of intelligence will understand why it is required. Where this pandemic is concerned, I think we are yet, like you very rightly said, very early days to say when the vaccination comes, what happens. Yes, I think all of us will agree that vaccination is the last thing. That is when everything goes away. But today is too early to say what is going to be the new normal. I hear a lot of discussions about the new normal will be people will work from home. Easier said than done. The data lines and whoever laid them out, whichever telecom company did not lay them out with the thought that they will be able to handle this huge amount of load at residential levels. It is like buying a Maruti 800, putting 10 kids into it and saying this is a school bus. And plus there will of course be data privacy issues and many other things. So all these things are too early to be predicting right now. Yes, we all agree vaccination is the end. Yes, we all agree that is when the world will become safe. We also know we are a very large country. The world is going to change as we've known it. There will be no more 2,000 people weddings. When you invite somebody to your house, you'll probably say, well, I've taken all corona-related precautions, which means I'm not inviting too many people. So there is going to be a new normal. I don't think this is the right time when any of us can predict what that will be.
Thank you. Rituraj?
Well, I mean, that's too many questions rolled into one. So I think in the interest of time, I'll just probably say that, I mean, the one, not a prediction, but at least I hope that India sort of has a similar recovery as it's had in the past. I mean, let's look at the Asian crisis of the 90s or the global financial crisis of 2008-9. India has always had a V-shaped recovery, which means that the economy declines very sharply, but then it sort of bounces back also equally quickly instead of a U-shaped recovery or a L-shaped recovery. So I hope that same thing plays out, because India continues to be a domestic consumption-led economy. We are an economy with a high saving rate of 17%. I think the government has also done a great job so far to curtail the health impact of COVID by definitive action and timely action. I can see that the suitable monetary measures are being taken by Reserve Bank of India in terms of liquidity injection at various levels. One is very hopeful that India will come up with a reasonable fiscal stimulus measure as well to back that up. Countries like the US have done a 10% of GDP fiscal stimulus. UK has done 15%. Japan has done 20% of GDP stimulus. India so far has done not even 1.5% of GDP fiscal stimulus. Our economic situation is not the same. We are BBB minus investment grade. That's a problem. But I think India must use this as an opportunity. Our economy was in doldrums even before COVID started, but there were restrictions on fiscal easing. Today, those restrictions are off. India, like other countries, can print its way through this mess, and it would probably need to with the number of people we have to look for. So honestly speaking, my big prediction, or rather hope, is that India shows a V-shaped recovery. There are enough indicators to support that. Even Moody's and Fitch, even as they are saying 0 to 1% growth, we probably will end up as the only G20 nation that is still able to forecast growth in financial year 2021. So I think let's hope and pray that the human or the health side of this crisis is curtailed, and may God be kind, and economic recovery happens rapidly, because we have to support livelihoods of the largest population in the world below poverty line. So India needs a good action, but a little bit of good luck as well.
Thank you so much, Rituraj. Rajeev, the last word.
Thanks. I think Rituraj and Manjit have broadly covered both the questions, and I would like to pick up one which is very important, Annurag, which you mentioned about the the motivation level of the employees during these times when we cannot rule out the salary cuts and the other cost cash conserving measures. Okay. So I think it all boils down to what is the level of engagement that the leadership team does with the employees during these times. And most of the employees, I think, whether they are part of G4S or part of Tenon Group or part of SIS or the other organizations, have been with these organizations, I think, for a very, very long period. Because I have particularly seen that the employees, which is the white collar employees, have a tendency to stay much longer in good organizations. And that's the reason we have many employees who have been in the organization for many, many years. So they have seen the best of the organization time. They've seen the good side of the organization. And probably this is the first time they are coming across this kind of a crisis in their lifetime. And they all understand that it is the question of survival of the organization. And as Manjit said, if the organization survives, everyone survives. So all our employees we have been engaging with are highly supportive of the decisions that the management would take. This is the requirement, and in the times to come. And I don't see a problem with reference to the motivation of any of our employees, and they're highly supportive, and they're participating in whatever actions and the decisions possibly we are taking. In terms of the future of COVID, it's very, very uncertain, and I am not a health expert to comment on when will we get a vaccine or when will the economy start taking a turn. And to answer Anisha's question on the travel, it's again something which is very difficult for anyone today to predict as to how will the travel industry shape up. I was just reading an article yesterday. My son is in the US, and he stays in a place called Daytona, which is in Florida. And Daytona Beach was opened yesterday by the US government, and 2,000 tourists flocked onto Daytona Beach yesterday. So that gives me a ray of hope that probably US is opening up the beaches for residents. And the same thing has happened in New Zealand. So probably that gives me a positive indication that probably the recovery of the travel industry, Anish, is going to be soon, because when the beaches are getting opened, I think that it is a question of people reaching out to those beaches. So I'm keeping my fingers crossed. I'm a travel enthusiast and I love traveling. I'm stuck in my house for the last 40 days, so I can understand the pain of a travel enthusiast who is not able to travel today. But that's the future. We need to live with it. We need to be very, very careful, and we need to take all the precautions to ensure that we overcome this pandemic.
Thank you. If you had to say one word to describe the future, one word, what that would be, Rajeev? One word.
I would say it's bright.
Bright. Rituraj? Unmute. Rituraj, we can't hear you.
At this point, I can only say that one can be cautiously optimistic at best.
Cautiously optimistic. Use two words, but I like that expression. Organic, pivoting, and cautiously optimistic. Manjit?
Evolved.
So on this note, on being in a process of evolution as the times evolve, as Rituraj says, we will organically pivot, and Rajeev says it'll be a bright time. We'd like to end this discussion on the future of the professional outsourced services industry. Thank you, Mr. Manjit Rajain, for joining. Thank you, Mr. Rituraj Sinha, for joining. And we wish you luck for your results tomorrow, SIS results tomorrow. You're a leader in the space. How you do, in some way, also the foretells on the sector. So we wish you double luck. And thank you, Mr. Rajeev Sharma from G4S, for joining us. For all our viewers and readers, we'll send you a edited video recording of this and a text summary of the discussion. So if you missed out on the full discussions, don't worry. It'll be in your mailboxes and your WhatsApp soon. We look forward to interacting with Mr. Manjit Rajain, Mr. Rituraj Sinha, and Mr. Rajeev Sharma in the near future again, when things are better and we are able to see a clear road ahead. Thank you so much. God bless you. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Very kind of you.